Welcome to the Driven by Talent podcast with your host, Patrick Clonch. We interview executive leaders to have real conversations about hiring, culture, employee retention, and what it takes to build great teams. Because great companies aren't built by processes alone. They're driven by talent. Real people, real stories, real impact.
This episode of the Driven by Talent podcast is brought to you by the Vantage Group. Any recruiter can find a candidate. Vantage helps you understand how they're wired and where they'll perform best. Because even a good hiring process can still put the right person in the wrong seat. And one misaligned hire can cost a dealership tens of thousands in lost performance and turnover. That's why Vantage uses Axis to measure behavioral alignment before the hiring decision is made. Better alignment means stronger retention, better customer experiences, and greater profitability. Whether you find the candidate or want Vantage to handle the entire search, there's a solution built for you. The Vantage Group powered by Axis. Clarity in hiring. Alignment for performance.
Crew, I'm super excited for this podcast. Today I'm joined by three people who bring a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge and three very different perspectives on our industry. You know, building a successful dealership today is more than just selling vehicles. It's about hiring the right people, building the right culture, creating effective marketing, and finding new ways to grow the entire organization. So today we're going to have an open conversation about what's working, what's changing, where the opportunities are, and what it really takes to build a successful dealership in today's environment. I'm Patrick Clonch, and this is the Driven by Talent podcast. And now let's jump right into the conversation. Well, hello and good morning. I have Sheila and Candy and Nolan. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. And I know that the four of us have had conversations in the past, and it just seems like there's some really good synergy between us all. We all have so much varying backgrounds that I think this podcast specifically is going to be one that everybody's going to want to pay attention to. So, but before we get into some topics, I'd really like the opportunity for you guys to introduce yourself. And Sheila, if you'd like to go first.
Sure. My name is Sheila Pogue. I came from a dealership background myself. I started at a parts counter in 2014 in the RV industry. Worked my way up through fixed operations. I eventually transitioned to the marine industry, where I was a director of operations before I came over to the dark side that is automotive in 2021. I have been a vendor, and one of my greatest joys is helping dealers every day in the seat that I used to be in a way that I wish I had had support when I was at the store myself. That's how I connected with Nolan. That's how one of the reasons why I started banging down Patrick and Candy's doors, because I wanted to talk about how we could help more dealers together. And here I am.
Awesome. Yeah, what a welcome. Candy, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks, Patrick, for having me. And yes, Sheila is very correct on that's how we all connected. I'm Candy McCollum. Right now, current role is Business Development Manager with Work Truck Solutions and Convoy. And I've spent my career in the automotive, right? Multiple roles from retail to commercial, in the marketing side, from print to online, the mobile, being in the dealership like as an employee, and also like Sheila as a vendor and calling on dealerships. So once you've kind of wore both of those hats, it's easy to see, hey, I wish that someone could help me with this, right? But I think that my mission is, in every role that I've had, has always been fundamental, like trying to solve problems and specifically operational friction. I don't know. I just think that I want to connect the dots, empower teams, and prove that when we're together and we're truly aligned, everything gets better. You get better, your customer experience is better, your employee satisfaction is better, and yes, that means your bottom line's better.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think we can all agree with that. It's all about, at the end of the day, we want to do a lot of things in this industry, building cultures and having great people, and having a great workspace. But at the end of the day, it's gotta make money sense. And if it doesn't make money sense, then we tend to scramble a little bit and try to figure new things out. So,
That's right.
well, welcome.
Thank you.
Nolan, how about you, my friend?
Thank you for having me, Patrick. My name is Nolan Armpriester. I'm general manager of Twin Pine Ford of Hamburg and owner of Drive Dynamics Dealer Services. I've spent my entire life in the dealership world. Father was a flat rate tech, so I've been in it since four. My first job was at 15 in the dealerships, and I'm 45 now. So, long journey. I've held just about every position that you can have in a dealership, and very experienced on the commercial and retail side for both service and sales. So, just looking forward to the conversation. And like I said, touching on topics that we all know that there's so much work that can be done, and there's so many areas that we can improve that are antiquated in this business that I'm looking forward to seeing it evolve as we move forward.
Yeah, and I think I do agree with you, Nolan. There's a lot of there's just a lot of, and stale is probably the wrong word, but in certain instances, there's not a lot of forward thinking when it comes to commercial sales. We have a lot of gentlemen mainly that are aging out, and there's going to come a point to where dealerships need to be more proactive than they have been.
Mhm.
You know, 35 years in the dealership world has taught me that dealerships are very reactive, just simply based on how the business has to come to them, or how they feel the
Yeah.
business needs to come to them. And then it's all about a reaction after that. Um, I know yourself and some other great dealers out there are very proactive in their approach. And that really is, you end up becoming one of the industry leaders at that point. Yeah, for sure. Sheila, I would like to start off with you. I've got some great questions here, and I'd really like your input. So, um, tell us and our listeners, what are dealerships missing when it comes to marketing, sales, and parts versus marketing, let's say, variable, like your retail operation?
There's a lot. My biggest hot button is probably, me and Candy have talked about this historically, about advertising just a picture and a price. It shouldn't stop there. Me and Nolan, if you don't mind me telling them a story, we are working on something together, and one thing that's really cool about what Nolan is doing is he understands the people value of his dealership. And something that we're doing that's a little outside of the box is he has submitted a ton of video content of himself and his employees at different parts of the store, including his service manager, um, really kind of pulling back the curtain in that area of the dealership so people can get to know him right off the bat. It's a really important branding piece to introduce your dealership and why they should shop with you, when, especially when you're at a franchise store and sometimes you might have the same price or the same OEM special as another brand dealer near you. You need to stand out. People need to understand why they should be shopping with you. And at Nolan's store specifically, and at everyone's dealership, it should be because of the management and the people that are there. That should be the reason why people are coming to you for help. So that's probably my number one drum that I will bang on the marketing piece. And then just ignoring fixed operations in general. I feel like they are kind of the redheaded stepchild of dealers. Sales tends to get a lot of love, and the Nolan has a background in fixed operations, so he has a unique kind of holistic overview of how that's helping his variable operation, how to feed that service to sales pipeline. Not everyone in variable starts with that background or understands fixed operations and that type of dynamic. So it's really important to consider that you continue to support people, not just when they're hand raising that they want to buy something from you, but take care of them after the fact. Get them in, maintain their vehicle, help them with repairs, and then talk to them about a trade, and then get that sales opportunity. So that's another really important piece of marketing that I think is missed.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I just, I mean, I understand why most organizations, dealerships, they're marketing the new car sale or even pre-owned for that matter. And I get the logic behind it is most dealerships feel that unless we sell something, nothing really happens on the backside. But I think a lot of dealerships need to understand that your customers may not be buying vehicles from you; they're coming in through the service department, and those clients need to be marketed as much as who you would see on the retail floor. If you look at the numbers without diving into it, um, every dealership will tell you that a dealership, the success of a dealership all depends on fixed operations. Every dealership will tell you that because, especially in today's world, we're post COVID, the PC part of the world, and all the gross profits that were made during that time of COVID, and we had restrictions on vehicles and things of that nature, those days are gone. So you have to rely so heavily um, on fixed ops to be able to carry the load until the next wave, whatever that might be. So no, I just, there's some great groups out there doing it, but typically, if you were to ask anybody, hey, think of a dealership ad. What are they advertising? I'd be willing to bet 100% of the people would say new cars. New cars. That's what they're advertising, and rightfully so, right? Because that's where, and Nolan, you can speak to this. That's where the OEMs monetize you. There's back end money that you can use towards those advertising dollars. Um, and Nolan, you can again, you can speak to this. Are those dollars available on the fixed ops side as well?
Yeah, I think that's something people miss is that those co-op funds are available for anything. So, we always have tried to focus on fixed ops here. And, to your guys' point, customers don't have to buy from here to have service here, but the people that service here buy from here. Right. So once we have them in service and we retain them with the service that we provide to them, they're going to buy cars from us. So I am a believer that sales sells the first car and service sells every car after that. So I just think that, once we get the people in, we show them who we are. Obviously, you set clear expectations and live up to your word. But as long as you do that and provide good repairs, you're going to retain that customer. And on the commercial side, it's even more so because those people typically don't come in here to buy a car, but we get their account and we go out and start servicing them. But when it's time for them to buy that next cycle, they do come to us. So, I mean, on the commercial side, I don't think you can't wait for people to buy to initiate a service cycle. You have to go out and get them and start the service cycle yourself. And then the sales cycle follows that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, especially if you're regionally based. Now, I know Nolan, you've had some really big fleet departments in the past, and generally you can't build that big of a fleet department just being regionally based. You have to go national at that point. And a lot of dealers will frown upon a national presence because they feel like they're missing out on service and parts, body shop possibly, trade-ins, things of that nature, and just by the nature of the industry, they're missing out on a lot of it. But when you look at it, it's like, okay, a dealer may look at that and say, well, why are you sending that truck to Arizona? It's like, well, the customer is based in our backyard. We're servicing the customer. Even though you may not see that vehicle ever again, we're still servicing the customer. And to walk away from that business, we're walking away from a regional or local customer at that point. And a lot of dealers, when you bring that to their attention, they get it. But they're just looking at it like, why are we shipping trucks all the way across the country?
When you do fleet on a large scale, you have to
Yes,
expand,
you do.
especially to win the large bids. You're going after a port authority or CIA or somebody like that. Those are 2 to 500 car bids. So, I mean, who cares where they are, right? So we're going to, when we win the bid, we're going to deliver them the vehicles. And if they're within, I'd say a 4-state radius, we still do offer them service because we'll offer them service with mobile. As long as the billable hours are there to fill a day, I don't care where we have to travel to. We'll go get it.
Yeah, yeah, and that brings up a good point, Nolan. If you could touch like on CRM usage, so typically your CRM is gonna be portraying messages of local business, right? So it's heavily retail based. Funny story, I had a customer that I sold to in Alaska. Um, he called me one day after receiving a CRM message. It was an invitation to come to our service drive on a Saturday, and we were, grilling up hot dogs, and you can enter to win all kinds of stuff. And when he called me, he says, "Hey man, I got your message," and it took me by surprise. I was like, I don't know which message you're talking about. It's like, yeah, I got your email here, man. As much as I'd love to, I don't think I can make it to Texas for hot dogs this weekend. I was like, oh man, I'm sorry, but uh, my question to you is, when you send out those CRM messages, it's got to be a different message for your national customers, correct?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you should segment that. Like, you shouldn't just blanket everybody with the same message. You should identify what you're sending out and who it's going to. So I think
Yeah.
you have to be more targeted with that. When you send those blanket messages out, they feel so generic,
Yeah.
and people pick up on that. So you
Yes, they
have to
do.
really make it personalized and make them feel like the message is for them, not just the entire demographic.
Yeah,
So
and it takes effort. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Candy.
I was just going to ask Nolan a question. Do you market to that national audience? And just interesting from all my, everyone has a different opinion and a different approach, and um, sometimes they just focus on the, like Patrick said, the local. Do you with in your past, and do you market to the national?
We did. So if they're a customer of ours, right? So we used to sell a lot to the CIA, Port Authority, bigger fleets, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll market to them, right? So once they're in our DMS and the CRM, yeah, we will market to those customers. I think with the larger fleets nationwide, obviously I can't go service cars in California, but we do send a lot of fixed ops stuff, and especially parts, because I don't. You can be anywhere in the world, and I can
That's
sell
right.
you our parts,
Good
right? So we
point.
syndicate everything with Revolution, and I try to make people understand that, look, you don't have to buy parts at your local store. You can call us and tell us what you want. We'll drop ship it wherever you're at. So I think there's a lot of opportunity on the parts side that people miss, because parts, it's a beautiful thing. Is, you could ship them across the world. It really makes no difference. It's just the price of freight. So
Yeah,
just
I like
marketing to
that.
people, I think it's making them aware of what we offer and what we can do, capability wise. That people they assume that you won't expand outside of your area or your PMA, but it's really not true. And if dealers are aggressive and see the potential, they should go after it.
Hmm, for
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. Um, and that brings me to a good point as we're talking about fleet and commercial. Candy, I'd really like to get your insights. So I know you work with a lot of different dealers. Some of them are at ground zero and they're working to build a fleet and commercial department. You work with overwhelmingly more dealers that are already established, and maybe they're looking just for some help as to how do they get better at those things. Here's a thought provoking question for you: if you were going to start a commercial and fleet department with any one of the three major brands, would you start? ha- Number one, where would you start? And then talk to me about the people that you would bring into your organization more specifically.
Wow, it's a tough one, Patrick. Okay, so I'm not sure. I know that my first start would be that I believe that there is a blueprint and I've seen it work. And I think that no matter what brand you start with, or whether you start on the parts and service, or whether you start on inventory and then bring in the parts and service, I think that you have three layers that have to be aligned. And if you miss one, I think it all could fall apart. And that's the sales, the fixed ops, and the digital infrastructure, right? And I think that I would start, and I hope this is going to answer your question in a way that you were looking. But if I was already established and trying to grow, I would look at this same path as a way of growth. But if I was trying to get started, I would definitely start with not trying to be all things for all fleet customers, right? Like I would maybe pick one vocation regionally, locally, let's say beverage or HVAC contractors, and become the expert in that. Build relationships with my upfitters in that space. Use that to show that I understand their needs, right? Because you're talking to a person that is buying a tool for their business. It's not on emotional, right? And I can say to that fleet manager that I'm calling on, because it is you're calling on them. You're trying to understand them. Hey, Patrick, I know your route density. I know your payload requirements. I know exactly how our upfit partners will configure these. And that's how you become a consultant and not a salesman.
One of the biggest challenges in hiring today isn't finding people, it's finding great people. Because the executive you really want probably isn't scrolling job boards or sending out resumes. They're already working, they're successful, and in many cases, they're not even thinking about making a move. That's where an executive search becomes different from simply recruiting. Whether you're looking for a general manager, fixed ops director, a controller, or another key leadership position, the goal isn't simply to give you a stack of resumes, it's to find the right person for the right seat. Because great companies aren't built by filling positions, they're built by finding great people.
I hope that answered.
No, that's early on, to your point, when you talk about fixed operations and how it connects with your commercial and fleet department. Early on, when I was trying to build my business, I connected with a lot of my service advisors, especially those that kind of focused in on the commercial side of the business. And I would tell them, hey, when it comes time that you're going to call a customer to let them know that their vehicle's ready, would you mind if I made that phone call for you? I'll be happy to. And then what it did, it led me to the person that makes the decision. Typically, it was a buyer, and I would introduce myself and say, "Hey, you don't know me, but I'm Patrick, and I'm in the commercial department here. We appreciate you bringing your vehicle in for service. I've got good news. Your vehicle's ready. So if you want to come up here and see Chris, he'll be happy to take care of you. But if you ever need anything beyond what you're working on today, I'd love to be able to maybe help you in the future." And those conversations went great because guess what? It wasn't a cold call. I'm not calling and trying to knock on a door. I'd already got that person's, I got their name and I got their phone number. And then I would tell my service advisor, hey, whenever you schedule that appointment, let me know. I'll come up here, introduce myself. And it was one of those secrets that I always got questions like, why are you always up in the service department? It's like, oh, you know, I like just floating around up there or whatever. And then everybody kind of figured out what I was doing. And then everybody started doing that. But it's just a great way to segment into sales. You might reach somebody that that can't make that decision. They're just a local guy. Corporate office is in Pennsylvania somewhere, and they don't get to make that call. But if they do get an opportunity while they're in a conversation with what's going on at corporate, maybe they do pitch your name to somebody, and you can get in that way. So yeah,
Or, Patrick, you just learn more about their business, right?
mm-hmm,
So, fixed ops isn't support.
right,
Like I said at the start, they're part of the commercial sales promise. Um, it's that uptime that's important to them, and that promise lives or dies in the service bay. So even if you don't get to maybe the right buy decision, you probably learned a little bit more about their business. You became more of an expert at their business. You're building that trust,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I just
And that
wanted to
would be the kind
clarify.
of people, when you asked me about people, Patrick, that's the kind of people that can do that, can think outside of the box,
Yes.
right? You went up there to service. It's such a great story, and I didn't mean to cut in on you talking,
No,
but I
no.
just it's powerful because
Mhm,
everybody doesn't have experience. It takes time to earn experience, but
mhm,
experience is golden. And
mhm,
maybe you don't always have the tools on day one for that experience, but you found that opportunity because you were hungry and looking for it. You wanted
mhm,
to be better, right?
mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
different for sure.
yes.
Yeah. But let me clarify that by saying I didn't want to call somebody when they needed a transmission. That's not the call that I wanted to make. So I'd let those guys handle that. I'm just
Sure,
calling with
sure.
the good news. Yeah, I wanted to share good news, not, oh, hey, by the way, because there's a lot of guys that would do that. If a truck needed an engine or whatever, they would call and say, hey, your truck back there is worth $500, but I can put you in a new one. I didn't want to have that
Yeah.
conversation. It was just too forward for me. So, but yeah, I was just thinking outside the box. I'm not a great cold caller. I was more, I was really good with internet sales. I was highly organized, so I could work a lot of customers at one time. So um, I found early in my career that I wasn't really good at going and knocking on doors, knowing that that was not going to be a positive experience for me. Typically, you're going to have some sort of guard dog there that, ice cream salesperson. Their job is to get me out of there. So I flipped that script several years into my career. Instead of walking in with the little binder and business cards and just you scream salesperson, I would just walk in with a clipboard, and I would ask somebody if I saw some trucks on their yard somewhere. I would introduce myself as a wholesaler. Hey, I buy trucks. I don't know if you guys are selling right now, but I'd love to be able to work with you when you decide you want to sell. Would it be okay if I gave you an appraisal on some of your trucks out there now? Would you like to know what they're worth? Well, invariably, the lady or whoever's at the front, they don't know what to do with that information. So they look down the hallway and they go, "Hey, Chuck, there's a guy here that he buys trucks. Are you interested?" Well, who did I get out of the office? I got the buyer.
Yes.
So Chuck comes out and says, "You know what? Yeah, we're thinking about cycling these trucks out. Could you?" Yeah, for sure. I'd walk out there with a clipboard and I just start. Well, curiosity always kills the cat. He might let me go out there for a minute, but eventually he's going to come out there with me to figure out what's going on. What are you doing? What are you thinking? And then I'm qualifying him the whole time we're talking. So what are you going to do with them? We're going to, we'll probably get new trucks. Okay, great. And they just keep writing, taking pictures, and walking around the truck, and they'll follow you around like a puppy dog. I mean, they just want to see it all. And eventually, the conversation is, "Yeah, we're thinking about getting new Fords. Would you happen to know a Ford guy?" And that's when the business card would come out. It's like, as a matter of fact, I might be your guy. And I've sold a lot of trucks that way. And it was just flipping that script, just being a little different because you go in, knock on a door, I sell stuff. Immediately, it was like, okay, I'll I'll get your card to the person that needs. And where does it go? It goes right in the trash 100% of the time. So anyway, it's just thinking outside the box is all I tried to do in my career. So
Yeah, creative. I like
yeah,
it.
yeah, that I think that the creativity just um, it has to be a part of everything that you do, and it doesn't matter what you do. You just have to be creative about it. And the more creative you can get, the more opportunities you get because like Nolan sitting in the GM chair, he's hard to get to. He's very insulated, right? He has people
Yes.
in place that are meant to keep people off of him because, I mean,
His time's valuable.
oh my gosh, yeah, a general manager at a store, you don't have 5 minutes in a day, much less talking to people that you're trying to build a relationship with that are essentially trying to sell you something. Now, they may offer some of the greatest, whatever it is that they have to offer, but it's all about time management at that point. No one's like, I don't really have a need for this. I'm not looking for this conversation. Somebody just get them out of here. And, maybe one day I'll consider it, but it's not today. So, but yeah, that's just essentially how I built things. Nolan, you're not going to get away with this without me asking you one of these tough questions. So, you've had a lot of success building your mobile service, and I'd really like for you to touch on that, and maybe for some of the dealers out there that are looking to get into that mobile service that you're offering, if you could shed some light on that, that would be great.
Sure. Starting mobile can be more complex for people than it needs to be, right? Because I think everybody overthinks it. Everybody always wants to make sure it pencils and that's profitable, but it is profitable, right? So I think what dealers, the first thing you got to do is get your first vehicle, right? Because everybody starts with one. But the easiest way to start mobile service is honestly just going after recalls and taking your special order parts out and installing them on people's vehicles. For the commercial side, that's where the demand never ends for commercial, right? So that's where you can really scale and grow. And at one point we went from one van to 33 vans within a 12-month period by scaling with fleet. And to your point, so I was like the cold call guy, right? I would get in my car and I would go find fleets and drive there. but you cannot be professional. And I mean that like in the most serious way, right? They don't want somebody to come in there in a suit to sell them. They want somebody that comes in there that speaks blue collar to them, that understands their needs. And you have to speak about their needs, not what I can do for you. Tell me what pain points you have. Let me help solve these for you, right? That's the way that we got in. And one of the fleets that I landed like a national account was FedEx. And that took, I want to tell you, it took me 12 weeks of driving to New York City every week. But I kept getting in front of the wrong people. So I finally, to your point, got in front of the right people and I spoke to them about safety and about maintaining vehicles. And that was the right topic for them. So you have to know your audience. You have to identify what their pain points are. And then you have to have a solution for those pain points for them. But mobile service, and I preach this all the time, that will be everything in 10 years. You're not going to see people come to dealerships anymore. I mean, for heavy repair work for warranty, powertrain, that'll still be done in brick and mortar, but I don't think you'll see anything else done at dealerships. I think the opportunity for everybody right now is outside of our dealerships. So I think you just have to be willing to go get it. But I think anybody that's not on board with mobile right now is going to get left in the dust because we've been doing it 6.5 years here and it's still in its infancy to a degree, but there's a lot of stores getting into it. Now, again, the cool thing is it is infinite. If you're willing to expand what you do, we serviced roll-off dumpsters, porta potties. I don't care what it is. I don't need a VIN number to bill you, right? So, and what we also do is we build that relationship, right? So that porta potty company or that dumpster company, they may have never thought about using us to buy vehicles, but they will now, right? Because we're their service provider and we're there for them. The one thing I think if you're going to get into mobile and you're going to lean on commercial is make it as personal as possible. Do not give them the dealership phone number. Give them the cell phone numbers of their coordinators. Assign a coordinator to their fleet so they have one contact. That made all the difference for us. We never made it, hey, call the dealership and get bounced around by the phone tree, right? No, here's our cell phone. Call us. I don't care what time of day it is. Tell us what you need. We're going to do our best to get out to you right away. They want partners, right? They want people that will help their business, and they're helping us in turn as well. But it's a different clientele, and you have to know how to handle them properly. And downtime, right, is everything for them. If you can help eliminate that and be there for them, keep their vehicles on the road, that's everything. And I think the one key for commercial mobile service that people miss is you cannot do it first shift. It does not work for them. You have to do a second or a third shift when the vehicles are down, they're in place. That was the biggest thing for us. We ran a 2 p.m. to 1 a.m. shift. That was our best shift. That was where we got the most done. So we ran 3 different shifts, 20 hours a day. But the second and third shifts were where all the fleet work got done. The first shift, we did recalls and special order parts and things like that. But because again, we're not inconveniencing them at all. At that point, the vehicles are back on the yard. They're parked. They're sitting there. The guys come into work the next morning. The vehicle's serviced and ready to go. So you do have to listen, starting a department from scratch is a lot of work and a lot of hours, no matter what you're doing. But if you invest the time in mobile service, you will reap the rewards because they're out there.
Yeah. And that brings me to a question. So, and Nolan, you and we've talked about this off camera, but when it comes to finding that technician that you're going to put in that mobile truck, much like used car people get a bad rap for things, technicians can get a bad rap too. Like you can have an old grizzled guy in the very back that doesn't like to be messed with, but he churns hours. That's not the guy that you're putting in these mobile trucks, correct?
No, I mean, it's a different tech, right? I mean, like the techs, and I have the guys you're talking about, right? We all have them. But years ago, you wouldn't put a tech in front of a customer, right? That just was kind of, you had some guys that were a little more polished, but most of the really good technicians, the flat rate guys, are out grinding. They do not want you to pull them off the tech, talk to a customer. But the mobile techs of this age are hybrids, right? They are service writers and they're technicians at the same time because they have to be professional. They have to be able to talk to our guests in an intelligent manner to be able to sell work because they're remote and you're trusting them with the brand of your company, right? You're trusting these guys to represent you well. So I think a lot of that, mobile text can be hard sometimes, but I think you have to set the expectations in the interview of what that job entails and what you expect of it. And you're going to know if you have the right people or not. I think, and look, we're guilty of it too at times, but I think we set ourselves up to fail and we set the employee up to fail by not properly training them. And that's a failure of management. So I think you have to be very clear of what that job is when you're interviewing, because it is such a different beast, right? You're on the road all day long. You don't have oversight. It's a very different animal. So you have to be very clear with people that they'll be out in the elements. They might work late. There's so many variables that come in there. And if they are okay with all that stuff, then bring them in and train them the proper way and set them up for success. But I think, and it's not just mobile service, I think service advisors, salespeople, I think so often we hire people, we sit them at a desk, we expect them to do a job that we have not explained to them. And then we measure them and we hold them accountable to not performing, but it's really the manager that's not performing because the manager should have sat them down and trained them properly to begin with. So I just think, you have to make sure you're super clear with expectations on mobile, because the variable in mobile is that everything's remote. I can't reach out and touch you. I can't see what you're doing or how you're talking to people. So you need to have extreme trust in your people, and you need to have the right people on board. Otherwise, it's going to go sideways quick.
Yeah. How important is it for someone that you're going to put into mobile as a technician? Obviously, if they're working brick and mortar, if they need help, it's there. If they need additional parts, tools, they can lean on somebody to kind of get that done. But when they're out there on their own, that's a special skill set all in its own. And for those of us old enough to remember the TV show MacGyver, the guy just could go do everything, right? But that's really who you need in a mobile truck, right?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need guys that are willing to problem solve. Now, I don't typically send guys out on their own. We usually have 2-man teams, so they always have somebody there that they're working with, just for safety measures. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, listen, we try to do our best and stock the vans. So we have processes that the guys are not allowed to leave in the morning without inspecting. They have all the tools needed for the day, all the parts needed for the day. But there's variables that come up, and we may recommend something to a customer that they want that we don't have on the van, but we have a team of coordinators and managers on site here that they can call back to. We will find the part for them. We'll get it either delivered to them or we'll find it local that they can just go run and get it quick and get the customer serviced. But there's a lot of communication, and there's just so many variables that can go sideways. Because to your point, you don't have everything all the time that you need, but you try to write processes and put stuff in place that eliminates a lot of the variables, but it's never a perfect game for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Years ago when I cut my teeth in the commercial world, I was actually a parts director for a mobile uh, refrigeration company. It was Thermo King. We're
Mm.
all familiar with the name. And we had mobile techs at the time because obviously not everybody could get their trucks and trailers into the shop. So it was a lot of overnight call out service and, that kind of stuff. When you have trailers that are loaded or trucks that are loaded and that refrigeration unit goes down, it's got to get up pretty quickly. So uptime was huge in that side. Um, but I remember, we had this one technician. He had the most amount of parts. He had the most amount of tools on his truck. I mean, this truck was overloaded by a easy 10,000 pounds. And the only thing that saved him was he was driving at night, and nobody wants to mess with that at that time of the day. But invariably, we just saw, and this was in the late '90s, so we didn't have all the telematics that we do today, and the dash cams and things like that, and even tracking devices. But obviously, what we did have was the alarm system at the store. We could tell who's coming in and at what times. This guy would spend more time driving around, coming back and getting parts. He was so unproductive. It's like, what are you doing? He goes, well, I used one of these on the last truck, and I thought rather than, not having it, I would just swing by the store and grab another one. I was like, but you've sold one of those in 12 months. What are the odds on you selling two in the same day? And that technician he didn't get it. He didn't understand how to be productive until he was on site. When he was on site, he was the guy. It was just that driving in between that he just didn't completely get it. But I could see where that could be a you know, a problem as well.